what's up? We're so glad to be with you here today. Woo!
New year, new me.
New year, new you.
That was the last time.
New year, new him. Man, we are excited to be with everyone. Thank you so much for just being a part of this podcast with us, and we're grateful for you. And welcome. You're listening to the Leading Hope Podcast. My name is VJ Williams, here with my friend and pastor, Kevin Jack. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day to become a better leader. If you're new, welcome. We release a new episode every Wednesday. The easiest way to remember every week is subscribe. We'll get automatic notifications to your podcast platform. Also, share it with a friend on Facebook, Instagram. You're an Instagram guy. Yes, you are. Catch him on, what's your handle on
Kevin Jack 10?
There it is, Kevin Jack 10.
Oh, I actually remembered.
There, you did. Good job. And also on YouTube. Also, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. Few extra minutes will absolutely help get this podcast in so many more leaders' hands just like yours. And visit leadinghope.online to get updates and find out more about the Leading Hope community. Kevin, we are we might go another week on this.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, stay tuned.
We'll see.
We'll let you know. But today is the fourth in our series, Think Like a Leader, episode 112, Spend Credibility Wisely.
Woo! So what I want to jump into today is it probably should have been the first one in this series. This is the most basic piece of thinking like a leader that I see people violate over and over and over again. And this is like, if you cannot think this way, you will not be a leader for long. I'm not saying you're not a leader, but you will not be a leader for long.
Yeah.
And the idea originally comes from John Maxwell, is where I first heard the idea, where he said that credibility or trust is like change in your pocket. When you do things that are right, when you do things that are good, when you do things that people approve of, you gain change in your pocket. And then his great turn of phrase is he goes, if you want to make change, you need to spend the change. If you want to shift things, if you want to change things, you need to spend the trust and credibility that you have earned. There is no one who loves change. Or let me be more clear. There's no one who loves change that someone else imposed upon them. We all love the change that we make. But no one has ever been like, we're in the middle of the road that's by our house. They are just changing everything on it.
Yes, they are.
And I'm looking at it and I'm going, this is stupid.
Yeah.
Now there's been
engineers.
There's been hundreds of accidents. The traffic line is forever. All this, it was awful. But I'm looking at it and going, this is so dumb.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will be better.
Yeah.
It will be. Yeah. And then I look at that and I go,
in the midst.
Yeah. So your ability to make change defines the potential of your leadership. If you can't make change, if you can't transform things, then you're not really leading well. You may have the position of leader, but you may not be doing the work of the leader. So I want to give you two thoughts on the non-leader perspective. Hopefully that makes perfect sense to go, I need credibility, I need trust if I'm going to create change, if I'm going to transform things, if I'm going to shift what we're doing, where we're going, or how we're doing it. I need change in my pocket in order to make change. Now, there's two non-leader perspectives on this, and I want to hit hard on these because I think everyone will hear that first idea and go, well, yeah, of course, I do that. I spend my credibility wisely. But people keep violating this. People keep doing this and have no idea why all of a sudden they can't lead well. And so there's two sides of the non-leader perspective. The first side is this. I can because I'm the leader. I can do this because I have the authority in order to do it. Non-leaders define themselves by their authority, not by the permission of the people that they lead. And I didn't do a study throughout history on this. I just want to acknowledge that. But here's my guess, is that almost every overthrown dictator, tyrant, king had the authority to do some of the things that they were doing. My guess is that almost everyone, you got to look at horrifically, Hitler had the authority to do what he did.
Yeah.
And yet, and that wasn't overthrown, so maybe that's a poor example. But I just want to make that case, when you look at Roman emperors, they were allowed to do what they did. Their authority defined that they could. But eventually, when the permission of the people ran out, they were overthrown.
Yeah.
Because you're not defined by your authority. You're defined as a leader by your credibility.
There we go.
By the trust of the people, by the permission of the people. When the permission ran out, your authority doesn't matter. Now, I want to be clear on this because I would never, argue that you should only do things based upon public approval, okay? I would never argue that you should just do the will of the people at all times because you're there as the leader for a reason. But there is a world of difference between I can do this because I have the right to, and I know some people won't like it, but I still believe it's worth it because this is for the best. Let me say that again, because I know some of you are driving in your cars and I want this to set in, okay? I would never argue that you have to lead based upon public approval. I think that is cowardly, that is spineless, but there is a world of difference between I can do this because I have the right to, and I know some people won't like it, but I still believe it's worth it because this is for the best. Thinking like a leader is understanding that you lead from permission, not authority. Now, where the first perspective is about spending change you don't have, spending credibility you don't have, the second perspective is about only gathering change. It's about only accumulating credibility. And let me give an illustration before we jump into this idea. So one of our favorite games to play is Secret Hitler. Sorry for the repeated Hitler references throughout this.
On your mind.
Well, I knew the illustration was coming, so that's kind of where I jumped into it, if that helps thought process. So in this game, if you've never played it, it's a game of secret identity where some people know what team people are, other people are trying to figure out. As you're going through concealing your secret identity, your team wins when they have played a certain amount of cards in a row.
Yes.
Okay? And when you play the cards, you kind of go, you raise questions. Am I on this team? Am I on that team? So even if you don't know the specifics of the game, you go, it's a game of secret identities in which the goal of the game is to have your team play a certain number of cards before the other team does.
Right.
And here's the funny thing that I watch is I have played with people who will play the losing card to keep their identity concealed.
Yes.
They will lose the game.
That's hilarious.
In order to not let anyone know which team they are on. And I go, the goal of the game is to get your team's cards in a row. The goal, the strategy, like the tool, is to keep your identity secret, is to keep your identity concealed. But that's not the goal. And let me put that in leadership terms. The tool, the strategy, is to gain credibility so you can make change.
That's good.
The goal is not just to gain credibility. The goal is not just to have trust. Because what I'll see people do is I'll see some people spend credibility they don't have and then wonder why no one's following. And I'll see other people only willing to gather credibility and only willing to gather trust. And they won't say anything that anyone will dislike. They won't make a decision that anyone will dislike. And to go, your role is to make an impact. Your role, like, I hope you're there for a reason greater than just, I want people to like me. And so these are the non-leader perspectives. The non-leader perspectives either doesn't take credibility into account or only cares about credibility. And to say, the change in your pocket is there to make change. Don't hoard it and don't spend what you don't have. So let me give you 3 applications this time for development. First one is this, is gain an awareness of the change in your pocket. Gain an awareness of the amount of credibility that you have. What's your longevity in your current role? What's your track record of success? Have you ticked off influential people repeatedly? The most important question is maybe this. How do people respond when you propose change? Are they immediately pushing back hard? Now, we've already stated no one's going to love change. But are they immediately pushing back hard on the change, or are they pushing back on you? Because I've worked with leaders who said, like, oh, we need to do this for this reason. And there was resistance within the group, and they couldn't realize that the people were not pushing back on the proposed change. They were pushing back on who they were as a leader because they didn't think they could do it. And so you need to gain an awareness of the change in your pocket. Here's my guess is that most people overestimate the change in their pocket. Most people overestimate their amount of credibility and the amount of trust that people have in them. You can change everything, but you can't change everything right now. You can change anything that you feel like needs to be changed if you have the credibility you need. You just can't do it all at once, and you can't do it right now in this moment. So you can change anything, but it might not be wise to change it now. Second application for development. If you have a staff, have this conversation. the whole conversation on
good.
credibility and change and trust. And one of the things, and we have not had this conversation for a while as a staff because we have not violated this principle.
That's right.
But there was a time, probably about 2 years ago,
Yes.
and my conversation with our team was, do not spend my credibility for me.
Right.
Like, don't you dare take the level of trust people have in my leadership, the change that I have accumulated over time, and spend it on stuff that I have not given you permission to spend it on.
Yeah.
Because what I want to see us do is too important for you to spend it on something that doesn't matter. And I'll see leaders, they don't realize this, how their teams act, how they speak, what they post. Let me say that again. What they post will decrease their credibility as a leader, and people are spending it on stuff that doesn't matter. Like, it is like, imagine it like this. Imagine you are saving money for a vacation, and you're so excited and so pumped, and then you come in and you find that somebody spent all that money on pool noodles. You're going to go, I am outraged that you spent the money that I saved on something that didn't matter and wasn't worth it. This is what happens with leadership, credibility, and trust, is your team can spend your credibility for you, and they might spend it on something that doesn't matter at all to you. And so you need to have this conversation. Third part is to say simply this, third application for development is pick your battles. I feel like that's been the repeated theme throughout this series. Don't fight battles that aren't worth fighting.
Yeah.
Like, every time you make change, every time you come across a battle, you will spend credibility with some people. Be aware of that. There are things in every organization that you will not like. Your job is not to make it ideal towards you, is not to create it in the image that you exactly want. It's to make the change you need to in the time that you can, at the opportune times. You can change anything, but you can't change everything right now. So pick your battles wisely.
Woo!
This is fun.
That's a lot. That's a lot, man. There's so much there in a good way. Like, there is so much that a leader can break down for their teams to help them move past here. I think the whole change metaphor is fantastic. I hadn't heard that before. So
I was going to say thank you, but it wasn't mine.
I know, but here, let me just address that. Sometimes we think we have to come up with our own ideas. Sometimes we just need to report somebody else's.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's get that straight, because if we keep saying the same stuff over and over, it doesn't matter who it came from.
Yep.
If it's true.
That's good.
But anyway, that's a powerful thing. And then we get to this thing about I want to get to this. I'm here for people to like me.
Yeah.
This concept of, and here's the thing that I think we forget, is if we as a leader, generally you still are reporting to someone else, even if you're in charge of the whole, you're the CEO of the entire company. There's a board that you report to.
Yes.
So there's always someone above you, generally speaking, unless you're Jesus. No one's above that. But other than that, there's no one.
Yes.
So the concept here
everybody
is,
answers to somebody.
Here's the thing that we forget. I'm here for. I might be helping someone that reports to me because they like me, but I'm really hurting the person that I report to if I'm going against the credibility.
Oh, yes.
At a real deep level,
Yeah.
because we just did a piece on culture, the previous episode.
Yeah.
We're killing the culture,
Yes.
and we're what's the word there? I don't know. Decrediting the
Losing
leader,
credibility.
right? Who we're reporting to,
Yeah.
all in the same time.
Yeah.
And so trying just to be now, that doesn't mean you go out and try to make people not like you. Of course you want people to like you, but that's not the goal. Going back to the game,
That's good.
know the goal.
Yeah.
Is it for people to like you, or is it to move the mission forward? Because not everyone who's moving the mission forward is going to like you.
Absolutely.
And that's okay.
Yep.
And I think that was a real powerful point. And then I want to talk this one real quick. I wrote down Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers.
Yes.
At 12-3, I think they are right now.
There you go.
No, I don't know what they are at this time.
Yeah.
Maybe they won the Super Bowl in my name. So they had this thing. They asked us. So they showed a clip to one of his offensive linemen.
Oh, I love
after
this.
the game.
Go.
After the game, and they showed him just berating his guy, like, live on TV because of a failed move on the football field. I think he missed a block or something. He got sacked in a very crucial time in the game. And what it looked like to everybody else was, man, Aaron Rodgers is a beep.
Yep.
Like, this guy is just nasty.
Yeah, just letting him have it.
Letting him have it. And so they asked this guy about it after the game, at the post game, and the offensive lineman, I need to find his name to give him credit for this story. He says, guys, you don't know the credibility he has with me.
The relational deposits.
You don't know the deposits that he puts in me every day and builds me up. So can he knock me down a few times when I don't do what he trusts me to do for him? Absolutely, 100%. He has built that up with me.
Yep.
He has, and as a matter of fact, it's gotten to the point in my life that if he doesn't do it, I lose trust in him.
Yeah.
And
It's an amazing story.
I'm like, that's really what we're talking about with credibility.
Yeah.
Is getting to that level of, hey, I can say something to you that may not seem nice, but it's influential and changes your direction.
And we talk about, so let's look for a second at cultural response to that. His cultural response to that moment was Aaron Rodgers is a bad leader because he's letting him have it.
Right.
Because everybody likes the leader who leads based upon public approval.
Right.
And he goes, no. His good leadership right there, this is not a long podcast, but for that moment was to chew him out, to let him have it, and it probably is not going to happen again.
Right.
In a pivotal time. And so there's this piece of us that we don't like anything that is viewed as, oh, I don't like that. He really called him out, something like that.
Right.
And so our far more likely thing within the two, I think, is not to spend credibility that we don't have, but our far more likely approach is to only gather credibility.
Yes.
And to never do anything that's actually going to matter, that's going to ruffle any feathers.
Right. And so talk about that. I think that is where we would go right now, is that if you only gather credibility, what is the long-term, short-term we understand, long-term consequence from not spending any of the credibility that you earn for your organization?
Yeah. Well, I would say it like this. I think I wholeheartedly believe in team leadership. Wholeheartedly believe. But at the same point in time, I wholeheartedly believe in point leadership.
Yeah.
That at the end of the day, that there's someone who is accountable and responsible. I don't think committees create great leadership. I think committees give lots of good ideas.
Yes.
And what happens is if you only lead, so here's the critique, if I could just throw it in here, is we exist in a denomination that basically gets to vote our future.
Yeah.
We get to vote our decisions. Instead of leaving them in the hands of a couple elected leaders to decide where we need to go, we vote, we decide, and it's going poorly.
Yeah.
It is, because the will of the people is not a great barometer for the hard decision that needs to be made in the moment.
Yeah.
You do need to have permission from the people to lead, but we usually doesn't make good, hard decisions. We make the easy, obvious decisions.
Yeah, I found that very true over time, too, is that you get a bunch of people in the room, they're willing to make a decision with people, but if you back them down into a room and you speak to them to make a decision on something really hard, I don't want to make that decision.
Yeah, it's just kind of fascinating. And there was this old idea that actually came from the world of politics, which I know we rarely throw up politics as a good example.
What is politics?
I'm not gonna get it. But the idea was that for someone who serves on the cabinet, that they serve at the permission of the president.
Yeah.
They don't serve because they deserve to be there. They're absolutely the best person. They serve at the permission of the leader who's there. And I think there's way too many people who serve on a staff, serve on a team, and they think, oh, I'm a big deal. Oh, I can do absolutely whatever I want. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It's what I want. And to go, no. Don't spend your leader's credibility for them. You serve at their permission. That's the reality, is your spot on that team is because they gave you a spot. Don't lose sight of that in the process.
We're just about out of time, but I want to ask one more question because I think this is so important to this and how someone can go about and do it. If you have a team and you haven't had this conversation, right? And this is probably a lot of people haven't had this, this literal conversation.
Yeah.
How do you start this conversation with your team if you've never had it?
If we make it really simple, first, have them listen to this podcast. Because it's a lot easier for us to bring it up than for you to bring it up.
That's great.
And then the second thing is you just ask this question. Is you say, what are the things we need to do to increase our credibility? What are the things that we're currently doing that are decreasing our credibility? And what are we willing to spend our credibility on?
That's fantastic.
It's not we'll increase it. We'll decrease it. Where do we spend our credibility on? You don't as a leader come out there and say, stop doing this.
Yep.
Stop posting that. It'll get unearthed from the team.
Yep.
They'll own it.
Yep, that's great. That's where we'll leave it today. Episode 112, Spend Credibility Wisely. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're new to the podcast, haven't yet subscribed, mean the world to us if you did that now. Also post about it, rate and review on Apple Podcasts. You won't believe how a few extra minutes will help get this podcast in the hands of all your leaders like you, and all those who want to become better leaders. We love hearing your stories of how the podcast is working in your life and business. If you have a story, visit leadinghope.online and send that to us. We would love to hear from you. And remember, everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.